G'day everyone and welcome to Tim Topham TV, the piano teaching podcast. This is episode 14, where I'll be talking to Joy Morin about how piano teachers can harness the power of the internet to build recognition, find students and grow their studios. Thank you so much for watching. I know there's a lot of information out there about piano teaching. There's a lot of blogs to follow. There's podcasts on just about anything. And I really appreciate the fact that you are watching on YouTube, or perhaps you're on my website, or maybe you're in the gym jogging and sweating and, really putting in some effort out on the bike or something like that. Wherever you are, thank you very much for tuning in. And I do hope you get a lot of value out of this time this morning. Before we jump into our interview, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, which is AirTurn. And with the advent of the new iPad Pro in November, and if you haven't heard about it, Apple's bringing out a larger format iPad, which is going to make music reading on the piano even easier. You're definitely going to want to check out AirTurn's products. They offer a whole range of iPad stands and holders, all designed for musicians. And of course, they offer the original and best, in my opinion, Bluetooth page turners. And I've got one here. This is the older model BT105. I still use it in my studio. Such a handy little device to have around. So make sure you check out their website. You can head there via my link at timtopham.com/airturn. And if you go there, you'll actually get 10% off your first order from the store. Now, if you'd like to find out more about today's episode, you can head to the show notes page, which will be timtopham.com/episode 14. And as always, if you can leave a review on iTunes, I'd be really, really grateful. It makes such a difference to ratings and rankings, all that kind of stuff. If you're unsure of how to do it, but you've got 5 minutes, head to timtopham.com/iTunes, and I've got all the details there for you. So my guest today, Joy Morin, is a pianist currently residing in Ohio, where she runs an independent teaching studio. She's been teaching piano privately and in group settings to students of all ages and levels since 2005. She holds a Master of Music degree in piano performance and an Associate of Music degree in piano performance. She's an active member of the Music Teachers National Association in America and seeks to stay current and further her professional development as a teacher by regularly attending Music Teacher Association events as well as national and state conferences, where she's also often a presenter. In her spare time, Joy blogs at colorinmypiano.com, a place for piano teachers to share ideas, resources and inspiration for their private teaching. So welcome, Joy. Lovely to have you with us today.
Thanks so much, Tim.
It was fantastic to finally meet you at NCKP. I've been saying this to a lot of my guests, I think, in the last month or so, but I finally got a chance to say hi. And a lot of people would have met you there and also read your blogs about the NCKP this year. I don't know how on earth do you find the time while you're actually sitting in those lectures and workshops to actually write and then put it out so quickly. I couldn't do it.
Well, with practice, I'm starting to get it down to a science, I guess.
So we'll make sure we send people to your website a bit later on. But in the meantime, I just wanted to ask you quickly about the title of your blog. How did that come about?
So I started blogging 6 years ago, and it was around the same time. This was when I was doing my undergraduate studies in music at Hope College. And at the time, as a senior, I was taking a course where the requirement was to write a paper, an essay of sorts, where we had to formulate our worldview and reflect on where we were and where we wanted to be in the future. And not surprisingly, my paper ended up talking a lot about music and the big role that music and teaching, was already having in my life, and how I felt that that was going to continue to be an important part of my life for the future. And so in the course of this essay, as I was writing and reflecting and looking towards the future, I ended up coining this little phrase, color in my piano. And to me, it represents keeping music and teaching interesting and colorful and enjoyable for myself as a teacher, but also for my students. So I'm always interested in new teaching ideas, always trying to improve my teaching process and help my students grow. We're growing alongside each other, all that kind of thing. So that's kind of how the name, I know it's kind of a nonsense phrase in a way, but it holds a lot of meaning for me. So
Well, no, I disagree. I think it's got a lot of meaning, and I love the concept because traditional piano teaching can be very black and white, in inverted commas. And so this idea of colouring and keep things colourful, which effectively means just keeping things fresh, is, it's very close to my heart, and it's why I wanted you on the show, because I know how much you push your own limits and try out new things and share so much online with other teachers. It's great to have a conversation about these kinds of things. So, no, I like it. I think it's great. So can you tell us a little bit about your story as it relates to the topic today about harnessing the power of the internet? Because some teachers are probably going to be listening to this. Maybe they've already turned off already. Let's hope not. But they're going to be like, I can't be bothered with more internet stuff. It's all too hard anyway. Perhaps a little bit of your background might give some other people sort of some focus, I guess, as to what we're going to be talking about.
Okay. So the reasons I started a blog, I guess before I started a blog, I was following a lot of blogs, and some of those early blogs that are still around would be like Susan Parody. Her blog is susanparody.com. Mm-hmm. She's been online for a long time, and she shares a lot of great free resources for teachers. And another one that I really enjoyed following a lot was Natalie Wickham's blog, which is musicmattersblog.com. And her new last name is escaping me since she got married. But anyway, it used to be Natalie Wickham. Right. So those were two blogs that I followed as a new piano teacher, and I gained so many great resources from them and got so many great ideas. And after a while, I started to realize, I have these great worksheets for these concepts and these ideas, and I need something for this because this is what my student needs. So then I started creating my own things. So then once I had these things, I wanted to share them just like, I benefited so greatly from these other bloggers who were sharing. So that's basically why I decided to start my own blog and get that going. As far as, we'll dive into how the internet is going to help us all. But that's kind of my story as far as getting myself online in that sort of sense. And then, of course, there's always being online in social media and things like that, which we'll get into.
So we've probably got a kind of two parts to the conversation about ways we can spend time online and not waste it and be really productive. So that's kind of one half. And ways we can have an online presence. I think that's kind of what we're going to be getting to, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. I wonder whether you had the same or any of the same experiences as I did when I started sharing a whole lot of stuff online. And I went to conferences and things. In the early days, I would get people coming up to me and in kind of shock and disbelief that I was sharing all these amazing ideas that would normally be held behind closed doors and just for me and my students, and this is kind of my idea. And people were actually really like, "Why are you like? Thank you so much for sharing this, but why are you doing it?" Did you ever get that at all?
Maybe some. I mean, I get a lot of thank you, fan email, I guess you could call it. Very appreciative, teachers, and I really, appreciate that. I just feel I can't imagine doing it any other way, to be honest. And it's mostly just because of being inspired by those other bloggers that I followed first. And I just felt like, I gained so much from them, and I want to do the same. I want to be just as generous again too.
Yeah.
And great. I think that's how the internet is today. I mean, we're truly in an information age where information is very abundant, and it's so easy to Google anything that you want to learn about, and there's information everywhere. And I just really love the spirit of generosity that this brings, that it's so easy for all of us to easily learn from each other. I think the internet has really changed what it means to be a piano teacher because we're so much more connected than ever before.
Absolutely. And I've heard it called the sharing kind of economy at the moment, where it's all about sharing. Like, open your doors, get your ideas out there, because we can all learn from it, and the world, becomes a better place effectively.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. No, it's great. Okay, so let's get started with the internet and how teachers can use it to their advantage. So perhaps let's look at the being online aspect and ways to use the internet as a resource, I guess. So not talking about having our own presences at the moment, because we're so short of time, and Facebook is so good at wasting our time. What are some of the things that teachers should be considering?
I think it's important to have a purpose or a goal in mind when you're on the internet. I mean, if I get on Facebook, then I try not to just leave the Facebook tab open all the time because, I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced where you look at the clock and you realize an hour has gone by and you haven't really accomplished anything, but you've read a lot of interesting things. It's just like getting lost down the rabbit hole.
Absolutely.
So I try to have some kind of purpose in mind. I'm trying to check up on my notifications and see what those are, and maybe spend a little bit of time in the news feed, but try not to get too lost there. Or if I'm trying to post some kind of update or a link somewhere or something, I try to get that done. And then I close out of that tab when I'm done. And another just little tip that has helped me a lot productivity wise is to turn off the sound notifications on Facebook, so that if the tab is open, I don't want to be interrupted by that little ding sound, because instantly your focus is off of what you're doing. Yeah. So there is a way to turn off that setting in case you weren't aware. So it's somewhere deep in the Facebook settings. I'm sure you could Google to find it and look for it. I don't know, things like that. I think always trying to be aware of what your goal is, or sometimes I do log into Facebook just to waste time, just to
chill out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if that's your goal, then that's great. But yeah.
Okay, so I think we should probably take a step back, because I imagine there might be some teachers listening to this who are avoiding Facebook as long as they possibly can, or who really haven't dived in. They might have got a profile or they've signed up, but they don't really know what to do. And we're now talking about how it's such a great time waster. I think we should perhaps mention, for those teachers who are on the borderline, some of the good things that come from Facebook. What in your opinion is some of those things?
Absolutely. So at a personal level, I love Facebook because it really helps me stay connected with friends and families, the people who are close to me. I live in the state of Ohio, but I grew up in Michigan. My whole family's in Michigan. My husband's entire family is in Michigan. We're the only ones in Ohio, So I love to be able to keep up with my family in that way. I can see pictures of my nephews and nieces, and I can post things about what I'm doing. So in that sense, it really just makes it easier to stay connected. And then as far as people who aren't as close to me, maybe, people I went to school with, at college or whatever, there's a lot of people among my Facebook friends who I wouldn't normally have any kind of connection with at all, but it's kind of nice to still have some way that I could connect with them or just kind of see what they're up to without actually calling them up or something. Mm-hmm. So at a kind of personal level, I think Facebook is wonderful for that sort of thing. I think a lot of people fear putting their personal information online and worry about that. But I really think there's a lot of privacy settings that Facebook allows, and you can limit what you share. You can pretty much be on there just to have a presence and to be able to connect with who you want, but you can decide how much you want to share about your daily life, or your personal information. So it's really up to you. And then I guess moving to a more kind of professional level then, as a piano teacher, I have a Facebook page for my studio that my students and their parents can follow. And then, of course, I have a page for my blog, so that's another aspect of it. But just me as a teacher without the blog, too, there's a lot of Facebook groups on Facebook for piano teachers. And I'm sure we can link to some of those in the show notes, but there's the Art of Piano Pedagogy, there's Professional Piano Teachers, Piano Teachers Central, and then there's the Piano Teacher Funmakers. That's the one that Susan Parody and I are co-moderators of. Okay. So I'll just put a little plug in for that group, totally. That's a good one to join.
In fact, and that's, that's one of the few I haven't joined, actually, so there you go.
We'll get you in there.
Yeah, okay, and I'll put a plug in for the Australasian Piano Teachers group as well.
Great.
For us New Zealanders and Aussies over here, we have one too. What's for those teachers who might be listening who haven't got into one? What are they, what's the point of a Facebook group?
The Facebook groups are basically an online forum. So if you just put in the search bar the name of one of these groups that we just mentioned, then you should see it come up, and you can click a little button that says join group, and then whoever is the moderator of the group can approve you to join the group. We try to make sure that these groups are just piano teachers and not someone who might spam the group or students. We're trying to stay on topic about piano teaching. So you can request to join the group, and they are just a huge wealth of information. I think it's worth it to be on Facebook just to join these groups, I think. I have learned so much just from reading the different threads that go through, and it just really gives you kind of an international feel for what's going on in piano teaching, which is really interesting. So people will post threads about, maybe asking for repertoire suggestions for a certain student situation, or posting, a teaching video. I love to watch videos of other teachers teaching and actually doing it, not just talking about the teaching. And I don't know, just anything you can think of. Teachers are posting ideas and resources and asking questions. And so you can learn so much from a group like that.
Yeah, I think Facebook groups have become an incredibly strong way for piano teachers to connect all the time. It's that kind of the thing you get at a conference where you get to ask all those cool questions to lots of different people. You can do it at any time of the year, or day or night.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're hugely beneficial for piano teachers. And if anyone listening isn't on Facebook or is but not in any of these groups, then definitely get involved, because it's a great way to learn and to give some of your own opinions out and share some of your own videos or teaching, or just reply to someone's question with your own thoughts. It's great. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what about other than Facebook online? Are there other resources that teachers should be using?
Well, we could talk about having a website presence. I think nowadays, if you have a business such as piano teaching, you really need to have a studio website, if at all possible. In today's day and age, it's as important as having a phone number or an email address. So I have a studio website that was just created with a very easy to use service, which is called Weebly.com. And I highly recommend that one. There are lots of other platforms for building websites, but that one in particular is one that I think is very easy to use, and it's very easy to create something that looks great. There's templates, and it's drag and drop, and so it's pretty straightforward. So having this online presence for your studio does a lot of things. First of all, if your website is coming up in Google searches, then it's how you'll get new students, because in today's day and age, parents aren't looking in the phone book or in the newspaper to find a piano teacher in their community. They're going to be Googling, from their phone probably. So you want to have that online presence, if you're looking to build your studio. So first of all, just being found, I think, is important. But then you can also put a lot of information about your teaching philosophy. Parents can really get a really good feel for who you are as a teacher, even before they walk in your door, just from your studio website. And I think that's really important from a marketing standpoint, and just to make sure that it's going to be a good fit between the teacher and the student. I think it's great for the parents to already feel like they know you a little bit before they actually meet you in person. And it can save, some energy too, versus just kind of making a cold call and wanting to set up an interview. It's more likely that your time is going to be well spent both ways if you already know a lot of information up front.
Absolutely agree. And look, both of you and I, obviously, we have blogs, which are kind of websites as well. What's the difference, do you think, in your opinion, between having like a Weebly created site, an online site, and a blog?
Yes, I think the most important difference is the audience, the target audience. So a studio website is created with the potential parent, potential student in mind, or your current students. You can also have information for current students up there. Whereas, a blog like yours or like mine is geared for piano teachers to be viewing. And I think it's really important not to mix the two. I have seen various websites online that are kind of trying to be both, and I think it's difficult to make it work. I'm not saying it can't work, but I think it's difficult. If you try to write a blog that's, could be read by piano teachers or piano students, invariably just the post, when you read it, it just doesn't feel right, because you're trying to speak to both audiences. So it's, I think that it's a whole different thing. So if you're wanting to start a blog, I think there's a lot that goes into it. So I think that it's not something I recommend that every teacher do. Basically, it's something that you really want to research well. You want to use a platform that is specific for blogging. So the main standard for that is WordPress, and my guess is that that's what you probably use too.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So WordPress for a blog, it's an open source platform that you can use for blogging, and you would want to do research about that and how to set that all up. There's a lot that goes into it. Does that kind of answer the question there?
Yeah, it does. And I'd be interested to hear from listeners too. If you're interested in having me or someone show you how to start a blog and do a little mini course about it, then let us know in the show notes, and we could definitely do that. You're right. It's a bigger concept than we've got time to explain the details of here. But I think it's important because I'm not sure about Weebly. It sounds like I've heard of it, but I haven't used it. One advantage you do get from a blogging style website is that you can update it very easily with your own thoughts, and this is how I got started. And those posts get referenced by Google quite quickly. And I've found, I'd be interested in your thoughts, I've found that quite a few piano students find my stuff online, even though it's directed at piano teachers, and still will contact me for lessons, and parents the same thing. Do you get that too?
I know that I've had students, realize that I have a blog when they've signed up for lessons. Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And that it's kind of a interesting marketing concept is that you want to have a really clear target audience that you're shooting for, even though, yes, other people will read your blog. So yes, my students might choose to follow my blog, even though they're not going to gain from the information in the same way as my target audience, the piano teacher. So that's the interesting part of it is effective marketing is that you're supposed to be as focused as possible. You're trying to be the perfect service or product for your target audience. And yes, but you will capture other types of audience. But the problem is if you try to sort of cast your net too large and try to please everyone, then you actually end up pleasing nobody because it just doesn't feel right for any person. It's not perfect for me. That's how it feels. And it just doesn't feel right if you're trying to be something for everybody, but it cannot work. So yeah, it's a marketing thing to think about, I guess.
For sure. And so for teachers who are perhaps just starting out and they would like to build their studio numbers, what kind of things should they be doing online? How should they be harnessing the online space to build their studio specifically?
Definitely the studio website, like we talked about. I think also having a studio Facebook page is really nice. And basically, how I use my Facebook page for my studio is almost like a blog. So I'll back up a little bit because to me, blogging, blogging in the traditional sense is you have a WordPress site set up and it's a blog. But in a way, posting on Facebook is sort of a blog in a way, posting on Pinterest or Instagram or whatever service you might use, in a way that's blogging too. So I kind of try to, instead of, it wouldn't be my recommendation for every teacher to start a blog, but I would recommend for teachers to think about their online presence as almost like blogging. Okay. So, if you're posting on your Facebook for your piano studio, then this is where you can post lots of little updates, little reminders, maybe pictures from somebody's lesson last week or from the recital, a video of a student performance, whatever you can come up with. It's kind of these day-to-day or week-to-week updates that you can put on the Facebook page. And I wouldn't necessarily update my Weebly site, the piano studio site, with all those little updates. So to me, the Facebook page kind of almost functions like a blog for my studio, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's a really good way to look at it. And I think that's a much more accessible way for teachers to look at it too. So they could definitely have an online presence, which perhaps wouldn't be updated all that often, but it's there, your policies are there, information about you, some pictures, all that kind of stuff perhaps done via something like Weebly. And then you link from that site to Facebook, your Facebook page, and on that you keep doing the more regular updates. Because chances are you're going to be on Facebook anyway, so it's perhaps a bit easier. How do you get people to like your Facebook page? And actually, we better talk about liking a Facebook page and what that means too.
Yes. So we talked about having a Facebook profile, and then we've been talking about Facebook groups, and now we're talking about Facebook pages, and they're all slightly different. So the profile is the most basic thing that you have if you're on Facebook. So you have a
Everyone
profile
has to
that's
have one.
just you. Yes,
Yep.
that's just your name. That's you as a person on Facebook. The groups we talked about that you have to request to join and you get approved, and then it's like a forum. So there's all these threads to read. A Facebook page is something separate that you set up, where it's sort of like, rather than being, it's as opposed to being more of a personal page to post. This is supposed to be a page that represents your business, or sometimes like it could be a person, it could be like a celebrity, so it's more of a public figure. I don't know, organizations, things like that. So it's a lot like a profile, but it's representing more of a group
Or a business
something public or a
entity.
business.
Yeah.
Right. So yes. What was the question again?
How do you get? So let's say you start posting stuff on your page. Who's going to look at it?
Right. Okay. So let's say that you've got your studio page set up and you want to get your students over there, and right now you've got no one, really following it. When people follow it, what they do is hit this little button that says like, and then there's kind of a follower of that page, and they will see whatever updates that you post in their own personal news feed. When I first started my studio Facebook page, I do remember thinking, I've been mentioning my studio Facebook page in my email newsletters and things, and no one seems to be going over there and liking it. And I know that these people must be on Facebook, So as just a little tip, one thing that I figured out was once I posted pictures from a summer music camp that I did that year, and I didn't put the pictures in the newsletter, and instead I said all the pictures are on Facebook. Then all of a sudden the parents went over there to see the pictures of their kids having fun at camp, So sometimes, you have to do something like that to try to help them get there. And then once they're there, then you feel like, okay, I have an audience that I can keep using this tool and keep people updated and engaged and things like that.
Oh, that's great. And although Facebook seems to keep changing its algorithm of what it shows on people's news feed, so when you first log into Facebook, you'll just get a list of things that are related to you, supposedly. Not always things that you put on your page won't always show up in the news feeds of your followers necessarily. So it's a bit of a hard one, but I really like your little tip there. Forget posting out newsletters or handing out paper. Just say, here, just go to Facebook, it's on there. And look, I don't know any parents really these days that aren't on it, particularly of young children. It's just the go-to spot. So everyone knows about it. Most people know how to use it. So it's definitely the place to be.
Yeah. You made a good point that, Facebook has its own thing and it's always changing and it's really hard to figure it out anyway. But so I wouldn't recommend relying on the Facebook updates for important things for your studio that you need to announce to everyone. So I do think the email newsletter has its place. I try to send out email newsletters only once a month or twice a month if I have to, if there's something I really need to send out. And I think nowadays some teachers are starting to get into sending out group text reminders using things like, what is it called? Remind. I don't remember, but there's... Yes, I think that's it. Yeah, so there's services like that, and that's very direct. It's in their inbox or it's on their phone, for a text message. So Facebook, again, I think of it as more of just kind of building, I don't know, this sense of community in the studio and just posting fun things and little reminders and fun quotes and videos and inspirational things. So I think that's an important point to make.
Cool. Now, you actually presented not long ago, I think it was MTNA, was it this year, about these topics?
Right, for the Young Professionals track.
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
Great. And so one of those things you were talking about was some of your kind of tips for using the internet as a piano teacher, I think. Is that right?
Right.
And look, we might have covered a few of those kind of tips so far. And by the way, are you happy for me to share those things on my show notes page? You mentioned,
of course.
Yep. So this is great. Thank you so much for that. Because Joy's actually shared with me her PowerPoint from that presentation, and she's happy to share it with everyone, which is fantastic. So we'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes too. But what are some of those other tips generally for piano teachers using the internet to get the most out of it? Anything we haven't mentioned yet? We've
covered a lot of it. I think, though, maybe I'll go back to some of the things we talked about at the beginning about this perspective of the internet. And I like what you said about instead of keeping things kind of behind closed doors, I like the spirit of generosity that's out there with the internet. I think that's something to keep in mind with the internet. So some of my general little tips would be about just be genuine on the internet. Be yourself, be generous. Share things that are worth sharing. One little tip that I had in my presentation too was to tell stories, and I think that's a really important point. And that's kind of a marketing related tactic as well, is good marketing is all about telling stories. So, talking about what you've done, when I write blog posts, for example, I try to always put things worded as a story. So rather than just say, here's a worksheet that, has these objectives and does this, that's important information to include, of course. But I also try to say, here's what led me and prompted me to create this. And here's how it helped my student, or here's how it didn't work, or, whatever it is I learned from having that story. That's what people are interested in. I think there's some,
So
go ahead.
Kind of, Charlotte came to a lesson the other day and she was just come from tennis and she couldn't focus. So this is what I did with her and here's how you could use the same thing, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, I think sharing stories is great. I should probably do it more than I do on my site, because you're right. I love listening to stories. When I presented at the NCKP, I told a story at the start, and it just puts everything in context, and people can connect with it much more. So I agree. I think that's a great tactic.
Yeah, it makes it interesting and enjoyable. And I think there's a deep part of all of us that we're always interested in stories. I mean, that's what books are all about. That's what movies are about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. And so some teachers might be wondering, why should they give away all their great little ideas that they've spent 20 years planning and working out how to do so well?
It's really a personal choice, and I'll definitely say too that there's a certain point where I have an online shop where I do sell things. I have a lot of freebies, but there are some things that I sell. So there is kind of that point where you decide, this is a bigger project, or this, I don't know. It's hard to kind of find that line, but there's definitely a place for, making money from what you're doing too.
It's okay. You don't have to be worried about saying it. I think we're all a little bit terrified, aren't we, as piano teachers? It's funny. We feel like we're not allowed to actually, sell things online. It's like, it's okay. Right. We all put a great amount of effort and time, a huge amount of time and effort into all the stuff that we produce online. You do the same. Susan does the same. We all do. So you know what? It's okay, I think, to occasionally put a dollar sign beside things, and I hope people respect that. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of other questions for you. How do you avoid information overload when it comes to the internet?
Yes, that's so easy to do. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. I mean, whether it's being in these Facebook groups or following all these great blogs that are online nowadays, even when you go to a conference, it's very easy to go into overload with all the information and ideas that you hear. So for myself, I just try to think of a way to make it manageable. So maybe there's just one step that I'm going to try to take, one thing to implement, one idea that I'm really going to make sure I follow through on, and maybe a second, but I always try to kind of start small. I also try to think big about things. I take notes when I go to conferences and things like that, but I'm always trying to think big about like what overall is the message here and how overall does this make my perspective change. So some of that can help. And I think too, if you're following all these blogs, just, taking here and there, you don't have to sit and read an entire blog in one night, but read just a little bit here and there, and then subscribe to the email updates so you can kind of keep up from that point forward. So there's just ways that you can try to pick and choose, and I would just recommend not feeling bad at all about choosing to reject things.
Yeah,
there are times when I read ideas and I say, I like that, and it's really cool that this worked for this teacher, but I cannot see this working for me, you know? And I think that's great. I
Yep.
think that's really important to realize, you know, because we do all have different teaching styles and different goals and things like that. So just because all the ideas are out there and they sound great and they look good, doesn't mean it's necessarily right for you to implement right at that time with all of your students, you know? So we have to try to think practically.
I also like to think of for the internet as kind of like a supermarket or a superstore where everything is out there. You can get it at any time of the day that you want. But just as we don't go to the supermarket and just keep on filling every single thing in our trolley, we pick and choose what we need at the right time. So maybe you're teaching some teenagers and they're a bit hard. So just do some research on teaching teens in piano, or you've got an autistic student or something like that. Just, I guess, focus your research in a particular area. It's kind of what you were saying, and don't feel you've got to do everything exactly. Just take one of those items off the shelf and look at it and think about it for a while and try it out, and then get another item off the shelf, sort of thing. That's how I like to look at it.
That's great. Yeah.
Because it is, particularly when you start getting on Facebook, you can easily get distracted by the amount of stuff that's on there. So, it's good to stay focused. I love your idea of, have a goal, kind of get on, get off. That is great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think the internet has changed most about piano teaching?
Definitely just connection, I think. I mean, before the internet, piano teachers didn't connect with each other all that often. I mean, if you're a member of a music teachers organization, then there's monthly meetings to go to, and you might have some colleagues that you would even call friends that you connect with and talk with and see on a regular basis. But like you were saying earlier, Tim, now you can get on the Facebook groups and, it can be midnight, or it can be 6 a.m. in the morning, or it can be a quick lunch break. You can log in and just connect with other teachers, even if it's just reading. That's huge. And everything that we read and we interact with changes us in some way. So I think that's really changing teaching, and I think professional development is just easier than ever because of this. So I really think it's such an exciting time to be a piano teacher because it's so easy to change and connect and be aware of what's out there and really make it exciting for our students too.
It's a far less isolating experience, I think, than it perhaps was.
Right.
Even probably 10 years ago, it was completely different, I think.
Right.
And so I think that's why a topic like today's conversation is so important, because if there are teachers out there who just haven't quite got on board with some of these things, I'd say you're missing out. And don't be afraid. It's not too kind of terrifying or anything. You can just put dip a toe in the water and try something out, and see how it goes. But I think you'll find the connections that you make are really strong. And I've met so many people around the world. Digitally met them. It's great if you kind of make up these friends. You see their names popping up every now and then in the same kind of positions and places, or people replying to my blog posts, the same names pop up, and it's like, I'm starting to build a relationship with these people. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of final questions for you then. Apart from Facebook, what are some of the sites that you use the most online for piano teaching?
That's a great question. There's lots of blogs that I follow. Mm-hmm. And there's so many to list. I'm sure we could list some in the show notes.
Sure. Have you got just some of the most, your go-to ones that you'll check out more than others, perhaps? You don't have to say mine. It's okay.
Tim Topham. I mentioned Susan Parody. There's Wendy Stevens. She's at composecreate.com. There's Teach Piano Today. There's Diane Heidi's blog, Elisa Milne. There's so many more. I feel bad picking out just a handful because there's so many more. But there's a start.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great. And you'll, even if you look, and we'll list some of those, but even if you can't remember them, just Google searching for whatever you're looking for. Teaching Beethoven to 6-year-olds or something. There'll be a post about it or something similar that Google will find. So,
right.
You can you'll always find these blogs, and you'll start exploring. And I find, I don't know about you, Joy, but I find you start to get a feeling for different people's writing styles, and you connect with some more than others, perhaps. not
Right.
only on topic, but just kind of how they write and the kind of vibe they give and the personality they show. And it's kind of like following your favorite writer in the newspaper or a magazine or something, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I should also mention as far as YouTube goes,
Yeah.
one thing that I've been following for a few years now, and I just really enjoy, is Irina Gorin's YouTube channel. She's got hundreds of videos on there, and a lot of them are student performances, and her students always play so beautifully. So it's great just to get exposed to new repertoire for your students to teach. But there's also a lot of videos that are of the lessons, like I mentioned earlier. So to actually see a master teacher in the process, in the lesson, just had to have this little window into her studio is so great. So I've learned a lot from that. So YouTube is another really great online resource for teachers.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know. How did we not talk about YouTube already?
I know,
Because
right?
I would say if I said, all right, put your hands up, everyone listening that uses YouTube, that'd be 100% pretty much. That is where piano teachers are. Apart from watching videos of teachers or student performances, is there any other things that you use YouTube for? Or is that kind of the bread and butter?
I will pull up video clips during lessons. I mean, if a student's learning a classical piece, it's so easy to pull up 6 different performers playing it, and you can talk about interpretation. And you can pull up, like if you're doing a group class with a bunch of your students, you can pull up a performance of Horowitz playing a piece and have a little lesson about either Horowitz or the piece that he's playing. Or, I mean, there's just so many directions to go. If I have a beginner student playing the theme, the Ode to Joy theme, how great is it to be able to pull up Beethoven's Ninth and to see, this video of the orchestra and all the different instruments and then the choir and the soloists, and they really can start to feel like they're a part of something really big. This is Beethoven, and this is part of a really, big performance, that local symphonies can do. So things like that. There's so many launching points and ways to use something like YouTube.
And that's making great connections in a wider sense too, isn't it? So it's expanding the students past this one little piece to where it came from, the context that it was in, other pieces like it. I find it great for, obviously, pop music. When a student says that they want to learn something and I've never heard of it, just jump on YouTube. The video will be there, or someone will be playing it or something. So you can find out about it, even if you have never heard of it and don't know how it sounds. There's instant. In fact, I use it when I have to accompany too. If I get given a weird piece of music that I've never had to play before, first place I go to is YouTube. I have the music in front of me and I'll just listen and watch someone perform it.
Yes,
get an idea
absolutely.
of how it goes. Yeah. So yeah, YouTube. Why didn't we talk about that one before? That was remiss of
We covered it.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Any other sites that you can think of off the top of your head?
That's all that's coming to mind right now.
Cool. I think we've covered most of the sorts of things that I would do as well. So as a final thing, I just think it might be cool just to do a little quick checklist for teachers. So let's say they're pretty new to most of this. Can you give us some action steps that they should take to try and get more of this presence on the internet and make good use of this free resource that's out there? What would you say step one sort of thing? Step
one would be to get a studio website up. I think that's really important, again, particularly if you're looking to grow your studio. So that would be, you can check out Weebly, or you can Google to find out other platforms for creating your own website. There's lots of them out there. And then as a second thing, get on Facebook and join some of those groups that we mentioned. And I think that's pretty straightforward to do. And I think right away...
Studio page?
Yeah, I think definitely... Well, I guess that there are teachers who have the Facebook page almost instead of a studio website, and I think that can work. I think Google does make those Facebook pages come up decently well sometimes too. So one or the other, or maybe both. I don't know. Maybe depending on the teacher's comfort zone.
It can't hurt to have more. Yeah, I'd go down the free website plus Facebook. And then, look, do they need to have Instagram and Twitter and Pinterest and Google Plus? And
I'd start with those two things.
Okay, good.
And then if I had to pick a third, I really like Instagram a lot. So Instagram is a social media site where you're basically just sharing photos. And it's pretty easy to use. And if you are also on Facebook, then you can share your pictures that you took with Instagram onto Facebook, which is kind of nice, so they can be connected. I just think that's fun because I like pictures a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, other things, I mean, Pinterest and things like that, or Google Plus, those are more back burner, I would say. So I would prioritize and just try, make it some steps for yourself to get online if that's what you're interested in doing.
Yeah. I think I'd probably diverge there. I'd probably go Pinterest actually rather than Instagram. That's my own personal thing.
Really?
Yeah. Because I wrote a post not long ago. I'll put a link to that about Pinterest, and there's a lot of great piano teaching resources on there, and it's another place that you kind of need to restrict your amount of time that you can use, because it blows out very quickly. But if you haven't been on Pinterest, just go to pinterest.com and type in piano teaching into the search box. You'll have, grab a cup of tea and be prepared to lose a few hours of time if you're not careful.
Yes.
It's a great site. But I like Instagram as well. I just personally, that's not the direction I've taken, but that's why we're all different, isn't it?
Right.
Cool. All right. So, look, is there anything else I've missed? You've been blogging for quite a few years now. You've got a great understanding of this. Have I missed kind of any questions that I should have asked you about it?
I think we've really covered it pretty well. I guess I'll just mention, if teachers are interested in learning more about maybe marketing, I think marketing nowadays is something that we should all be aware of, and marketing has changed a great deal, and it's very much related to all of these internet things that we've been talking about. So I'll just mention one author that I really like that writes books about marketing, and that is Seth Godin. And he's written many, many books, and they're all very easy to read. So if you're picturing, this heavy textbooks or something like that, you don't have to think that. His writing is very easy to read, and he's funny. The books read very quickly. So that's something to check out if you're interested in marketing. Just visit your library and see what the marketing book section has. I think it's good to read some of that, and it can help you think about your online presence and how to present yourself online. I do have an older blog post series that is about starting your own blog too. So we can link to that too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So if there are teachers who do want to, who are interested in going that direction for starting their own blog for piano teachers to read, maybe there'll be some helpful things in those posts too.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, and where do people find you, Joy, if they want to connect with you?
So my blog is colorinmypiano.com. And I'm on Facebook. You can feel free to add me as a friend on Facebook, or follow my Color My Piano page on Facebook. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on YouTube. You guys can feel welcome to put my name in, and I'll happily add you back.
Great. No, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been really good to talk with you. And look, it's such a big topic. We've kind of scratched the surface, but hopefully just giving people some starting points, I guess, and some beginning steps to take and why they should do it. Hopefully that's been clear. That was certainly our intention. So thank you so much for your time. I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening over there, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
And I'll definitely link to all the things we've been talking about at timtopham.com/episode 14. And in there, I'll include 2 great resources that Joy has provided for us, including her full PowerPoint presentation with notes from her MTNA show earlier this year. So thank you again for sharing that too. That's a great resource.
Sure, you're welcome.
Beautiful. All right. Well, farewell. I'll speak to you again soon. No doubt. I'll see you online.
Yes, definitely. Thanks for doing this. I really enjoyed it.
Great to have you on. All right, we'll see you later.
Bye.